Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to our World Water Week discussion. My name is Allison. I'm a student here at UTEP. And like many of you, I was curious about the systems that deliver and treat our water. So if you are here for extra credit, I'm going to show a QR code at the end of the presentation. Oh, they're what? Oh, okay, great. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce a few of the topics that we'll be discussing today, and then the panelists will introduce themselves. I'll ask them a few questions, and then the audience will get the chance to ask a few questions. This topic is especially important in our region because we live in an arid desert region, and that means we have dry climates with high temperatures, low precipitation, and low humidity. Um, let's see. So arid deserts are the driest of all biomes, so we face some unique challenges when it comes to managing water resources in our region. El Paso is one of the most water efficient cities in the US because we prioritize having a diverse water portfolio. And this means that we have more than one way to manage our water instead of relying on a single source for water security. So our water comes from the Rio Grande and two aquifers, which are underground layers that store water. And these two aquifers can be salty in some parts. So we supplement our water portfolio with desalination. And these aquifers are also limited in water supply. So we also supplement our water portfolio with water reuse. To get an idea of the salt content in water, drinking water is below 0.1 parts per thousand, while other fresh water such as lakes and rivers and parts of our aquifer are below 0.5 parts per thousand. And then other parts of our aquifer are well below 30 parts per thousand, but they're still considered brackish water. And then we have seawater below 50 parts per thousand, and then anything above that is briny water, and that's what you'll see discharged when desalinating water. So by the time water from the Rio Grande reaches us, it's been exposed to fertilizers and water softeners and wastewater that hasn't been treated for salinity. So like our aquifers, it can also be considered brackish. And this is an issue in agriculture because we have arid saline soils, and these are found in dry climates, and they're formed when rainwater is insufficient to leach salts from the soil profile. Instead, salt is concentrated in the soil due to a high rate of evapotranspiration. And this means that water is lost to the atmosphere and the salts are left behind. High salinity in the soil makes it hard for the plants to absorb water. And it can also lead to land degradation, which means that the soil structure is unable to support life. So there are farming practices that are being studied and implemented to mitigate these issues. So some of those include drip irrigation and greenhouses to help slow evaporation, and cover crops to reduce erosion, and the desalination in irrigation water to prevent adding more salinity into the soil. And then we also have crop rotation, which provides biodiversity. And this last one benefits the soil food web, which improves water infiltration and the nutrient cycling. And also, because of our climate, many of our fruits and vegetables are imported from other places. So that, of course, also has a water footprint associated with it. And here we have our panelists. They have great insights into managing these systems. So they're going to introduce themselves and talk about their involvement in regional water supply issues. We're going to start with Mr. Reinert.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm the water resources manager for El Paso Water. And what I do is I do water supply projects, including the desalination plant, state water planning, and then I'm the project manager for our various water supply projects, well drilling, well equipping, and then we have a very robust well rehabilitation program. This is where we have all of our existing wells, and we want to maximize production at each of these wells. And so that means we do various things like install a camera down the well. We pull the pump, lower the camera down the well, and we examine if the well screen is clogged. We might do some techniques like brushing out the well screen, maybe some other treatments to maximize production at the well. Because as we'll talk about probably in this session, we're facing a drought coming up this summer. That means the Rio Grande is going to be very limited in its flow. And when that happens, we have to maximize our groundwater production. So I guess that's my kind of introduction. Oh, okay. Okay. So these are the components that Allison started to talk about on our groundwater supply. We have two major aquifers. I always tell people that they're in New Mexico, Texas, and Mexico. They don't stop at the borders, international or state borders. The one in yellow is the Mesilla Bolson. If you live in West El Paso, you're getting groundwater from this aquifer year round. And the light blue aquifer is the Waco Bolson. The Waco Bolson has had some management challenges over the years, including water level decline and brackish water intrusion. We've attempted to address those two management challenges by doing aquifer recharge for the last 40 years. And we've also been using more and more river water from two river plants that help us to maximize river production when it's available. And when we do so, that means we're not pumping as much groundwater. The second thing there we have is surface water, and that is the Rio Grande. And, you know, interestingly enough, when you talk about Rio Grande to people that don't live here, they're shocked to hear that the Rio doesn't flow year round here in El Paso. Well, it doesn't. For us, we receive water like an irrigator would. If it's a full irrigation season, we might get water from March through October. This year, everything's lining up to be a very limited river supply season. That might, I heard today, June 2nd through August. So maybe 6 to 8 weeks of river water. So very limited. This is comparable to the drought that we had in 2013. When that happens, we have to pump more and more groundwater. Then our next thing we have on there is the desalination plant, which Allison mentioned. We built this plant in 2007. It was a partnership between El Paso Water and Fort Bliss. All of the facilities are built on Fort Bliss. We operate the desalination plant. We provide Fort Bliss with wholesale water. It's been a great project for us. And we also have some other desalination units. They're wellhead units. We have 10 of those in the lower valley. The lower valley has a lot of brackish water, and we've addressed that by wellhead treatment. So we have centralized treatment, a very large desalination plant. Can I see a show of hands who's been to the desalt plant? Okay. Well, we need some more people to go out there. So Dr. Meyer, you can talk to me and maybe get some more folks out there. But it's worth seeing. It's the largest inland desalination plant in the world. Our next thing that we have there is non-potable reuse. This is wastewater that's treated to meet irrigation standards. You look carefully, you see those are purple pumps. The purple color tells us something. It tells us that it's irrigation water or it's wastewater treated to irrigation standards. And that's the pipe that you may see around town, or these pumps indicate that it's non-potable. We can use it for irrigation. Okay. So then the next one we have there is indirect potable reuse. Now this has a couple of new interesting features to it. Up in the far northeast El Paso, we have aquifer recharge program, which is using wastewater treated to meet drinking water quality, and we inject that into the aquifer. And then about 5 years later, our wells are pulling out this water. So that is indirect potable reuse. But we are now actually approaching and working on something called direct potable reuse. This is wastewater from our Bustamante plant down in the Lower Valley, and it's currently treating water to meet irrigation standards that you can discharge into the river. But now we're going to treat it four more times, four more measures of treatment. And what this will do is allow it to be a drinking water supply. So we're very excited about that. We had the groundbreaking ceremony at the end of February. And then lastly, we have conservation. Conservation in our state water planning is a very cost-effective water supply for us. And you might ask, well, how does conservation count as a supply? If we count the per capita demand of our customers right now, it's 130 gallons per customer per day. And as our city grows, added customers with the declining per capita demand equals a supply. And we get to use that as a, okay, yes, sorry about that. So I'm just about done. So conservation counts as a valuable water supply strategy for us. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Like to talk. Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, my name is Girisha Ganjagunte. I'm a professor with Texas A&M University System. You may be surprised we have presence in El Paso. It's in the far east, where Joe Battle and I-10 meet. So it's a small research center. We don't really teach, but we do have online courses, and we do hire recruit students from UTEP, local institutions for conducting research in our agency. So I work as a professor with the Department of Soil and Crop Sciences. Our main center, we are affiliated with College Station departments. I do have a small team consisting of 2 postdocs and 3 students hired from UTEP. All are studying at UTEP. Uh, my research focus is salinity and water management. And Alison gave a very nice introduction about the agriculture situations and the challenges that agriculture faces in this region. Next one, please. So I don't want to repeat all that. So salinity, water scarcity, water quality are the important consideration for sustainability of agriculture. So this, graphs were extracted from a USDA CAP project that I did with Alex, and Dr. Hargrove was the principal investigator. Maybe you know him, and he was the past CERM, the director. And that was a fantastic study. And as you can see, some of it is repetition of what Scott said. The water portfolio in El Paso consists of different supplies. It comes from 2 groundwater aquifers, then river water, desalination. So these are mostly for urban. For agriculture, most of the water comes from Rio Grande River water. And I would say during the periods of drought, which is becoming very common, we use Vicobolson's water. So one important thing I want to highlight is every year, the irrigation district in El Paso, it roughly has 70,000 accounts on register, requires 330,000 acre feet of water. That is close to 400 million cubic meters. See, that's how much water it takes to have a successful crop for 70,000 acres. That's because it's extremely dry and hot. It takes a lot of water to grow crops. And do you all, by any chance, know what kind of crops are grown in El Paso? Pecan, yes. Cotton. Cotton, yeah. We used to have alfalfa. Now it is disappearing because of the elevated salinity. Awesome job. So I didn't expect urban guys to know so much. So yes, yeah. So the bottom graph basically shows water extraction from different sources at different climatic situations. So different models were used to see what kind of water is needed over that period of time. But one theme that's common in those 3 graphs is the extraction of water for agriculture, for meeting agriculture and urban needs, is increasing over time. So in and you all know how much urbanization is happening in El Paso. So in future, more and more water would be diverted to municipal and industrial sector. So that's the water away from agriculture fields. And basically, Elephant Butte Dam was constructed for agriculture. Now it needs to be used to meet all other needs. So next one, please. So this is the reality. Farmers are not going to have fresh, abundant supply of fresh water. So in future, we need to use different strategies to reduce freshwater footprint, and we do have alternative water supplies. Like Scott was narrating, we have uh, groundwater uh, in Waiko Bolson, which is probably 20,000 million, 20 million cubic meters, I think, or million acre feet. So it's good enough if we don't have competition from urban sector to meet agriculture water supply in case of drought, and we don't have to, if we don't have river water. But the pressure is increasing from other sectors, so we need to reduce the amount of fresh water that is being consumed by the agriculture. Roughly agriculture takes 70% of the available water supply in the region. So we need to reduce that footprint. One of the major reason why we use so much water is the default system of irrigation is flood irrigation because of the elevated salinity. The farmers think we need to flood the fields to leach the salts accumulated in the root zone. So that may or may not be true, but for that you need data. So towards that, to show farmers, hey, we don't really need so much water, and salinity is probably not going to be an issue if you use water efficient methods such as drip or sprinkler. So that's one project that I'm doing in some pecan fields. If you do it in a grower's field, it will be a method demonstration. They might actually be more confident to use those results. So roughly, drip irrigation can save 50% of the fresh water. So that's a huge savings when you are considering like 70% of the available water is going towards agriculture. The next one. Uh, so there are many farmers who are reluctant to adopt drip irrigation or sprinkler because it takes a lot of investment. See, an acre of drip irrigation might cost $2,000. And we have 90,000 acres on the Elephant Butte irrigation district. Yeah, maybe last, sorry. So another way to reduce water footprint is to improve water use efficiency by using sensors that can give real-time moisture, in situ soil moisture data. So each irrigation can save roughly half a foot of water. So the next one. So the third strategy I'm using is all these crops that we are using are very water intensive and salt sensitive. So instead, you can grow salt tolerant and less water intensive crops. The some of which are listed here. So this can actually reduce the water footprint by more than 50%. So those are the three strategies. So like desalination is another thing we discussed, but cost of desalination for agriculture is prohibitively expensive. Many farmers may not be able to adapt. So with that, I stop, and sorry I took more time.
It's okay. I just want the audience a chance to ask questions.
Yeah, sure.
No, I think
So my name is Marty Loya. I actually own a farm with my husband. We're co-owners. And so we understand what he's saying for agriculture and what he's saying are the needs. We've been open for 4 years where we have a farmer stand. So everything we grow on the farm, we sell at the farmer stand. And this is our 4th year starting. And so water is definitely an issue that we need to look at. So anything that we do on the farm requires water, right? Uh, the property where we're growing the produce used to be used for cotton, and cotton depletes the soil and makes it look like that. because it's so dry. It's so everything that we hear about. Uh, so what we do is we actually have three water sources. We have the flood irrigation that's coming from the Rio Grande to the Rio Grande. However, we cannot use that water for our fruits and vegetables. Fruits maybe, but not vegetables, because that water is not clean anymore. It's dirty basically for different things, different chemicals. So we cannot use it for our fruits, for our vegetables, because then we would have to test it for E. coli every time, at least once a month. So that we said no. Our other water source is the original well from the farm, but it's very salty. So we can't use that. We can use it for our pecan trees and sometimes for some of our fruit trees. And then the last one, the one that we use for our produce all the time, is drip irrigation with city water. And you can only imagine how expensive it gets when we're in a drought and no water. So the months of July, August, and September, sometimes October, is very expensive. Very expensive. Go ahead. So that's why he was talking about the decline of agriculture. Many farmers don't feel it's worth it to pay so much for water, even though they pay for irrigation rights as well too. So they up to sell their property, and they usually sell it to developers building houses. So where our farm is located in Socorro, before when I was growing up, all you would see was cotton farms, vegetable farms, all of that everywhere. Now you're just starting to see housing, which is it's really sad that it's going to go away. So again, how clean is our water? We know that the irrigation water is not clean, so we cannot use it. So we stick with the city water. So we are doing a couple of things. We are redoing the drip irrigation. We're also doing crop selection where we can use the drip irrigation and not use as much water. Uh, rainwater harvesting, we're not doing that. The other thing that we're doing is we are partnering up for a company out of the East called Harmony, and they have a model of a small farm desalinization equipment. And what that's going to do is it's going to take our well water, take it through a machine, and then dump out the salt in a pond. And that salt's supposed to evaporate so that we have clean water coming through. So we are part of that project. It's a pilot project. Unfortunately, it hasn't gotten started yet because there's some things from the city that puts on a hold. But the whole idea is to use our farm as a pilot for their experiment. And that's a big one. Ours is going to be a lot smaller than that. The other thing we are going to incorporate are timers so that on the farm so that we know exactly when the water's turned on and when it's turned off. We forget about having it on and we go overnight and we flood the crops and that's where it gets expensive too. So that's another thing we're doing as well too. So in conclusion, the importance of water preservation as far as a farm is concerned, we can't do anything without water. We have to keep those plants watered. There's no ifs or but about that. And we're going to keep looking at that as well too. Every year we look at something and see how it would work on our farm.
Okay, thank you guys for that. I do work on Miss Loya's farm, and I wanted to show you guys her beautiful farm. This is a great viewpoint of it. Yeah, this is her farm. If you guys are looking for a farmer's market, You should definitely go check her out. She also sells artwork and jewelry and coffee. And I might make your coffee if you go. Oh, just a question? Oh, okay. Okay, so we are running a little short on time, and I do want to give you guys the chance to ask some questions. So we're gonna pick up the speed a little bit. So this is Miss Loya's farm. You can actually see her current water supply here. And like Miss Loya mentioned, she is going to be adding a desalination plant, a very small desalination plant this summer. And typically, desalination technology is too expensive for small scale applications like this. But the technology being tested on Miss Loya's farm, called batch reverse osmosis, can filter water for a fraction of the energy required for continuous reverse osmosis, which is the type of desalination that is used most commonly worldwide right now. And if you guys have any questions on the mechanism for energy savings, feel free to ask. And if you all have questions for the panelists, now is the time to ask. So this QR code takes you to the live stream where you can use the chat function to type your questions out. And in the meantime, while you all are typing them out and thinking about them, I'm going to ask a question of my own to each of the panelists. I'm going to start with Mr. Reinert. So I wanted to ask if water reuse treatments are expensive, such as converting wastewater to drinking water, what is the reason that we don't just use water from the fresh part of our aquifer to save on costs? Why go through the trouble of all the other methods of desalination?
That's a very good question. We have been using the inexpensive water that's fresh groundwater. It's right where you need it. It's right where people live. It's fresh. All you got to do is add chlorine to it. Well, we've been doing that for 80 years, and there's signs that we need to be doing other changes. So, what we have to talk about is water's going to cost more. The water's available. Somebody said, how many million acre feet of brackish water? So there's there's a lot of brackish water available, but the low-hanging fruit of fresh local groundwater, we are going to continue using it, but we're having to go to more expensive treatments of water, and that includes water reuse. That's wastewater treated to drinking water, and then desalted groundwater. It's available, but we're having to go a little higher up on the tree, and treatment means money. So.
I'm so sorry. Is this because of drought, or is this because of our aquifer for replenishing the aquifer, or what's the reason that we're going higher? Is it just to ensure water security for future generations?
The water quality in the aquifer, it has been changing, and so there are people that incorrectly think that we can pump groundwater forever, fresh groundwater, and we've already seen that's why we built the $93 million desalt plant in 2007. It's because that eastern part of town by the airport, it's brackish, but it's a resource that we can use with technology. 50 years ago, you'd say we don't have any water. But now with technology, you say, well, we got water that we can desalt, and we have wastewater that we can treat to meet drinking water. So technology's there, and it's going to cost a little bit more money.
All right, thank you so much for that answer. Miss Leia, I'm going to go to you next. So, what challenges have you faced in terms of irrigation water, and why did you decide to look into desalination as an alternative option?
When I first got started, we actually went to a farm safety class so that they could show us what we can do as far as allowing people to walk on the farm or how we're going to water, how we're going to package, just everything. And they're the ones that told us about the flood irrigation, that the water is not as clean as it used to be. So we would have to test it for E. coli. So that's the big one for us.
Thank you, Miss Leia. And Dr. G, I've seen your research papers that you've been looking into innovative solutions for overcoming soil salinization, such as sulfur burner and gypsum. Would you care to briefly describe some of your research?
Yeah, sure. My research has four focus areas: salinity assessment management, water reuse, freshwater conservation, and also climate smart agriculture. So climate change is becoming an important issue. So in terms of gypsum, this is something farmers have been using traditionally to counter sodicity. The dominant salt in our waters is sodium salt, so sulfates, chlorides of sodium. So sodium has a propensity to deflocculate the aggregates. So when you look at soil, it's just not dirt, it has structure, it has porosity. So one reason why salt accumulates in the root zone is because water doesn't percolate fast enough. So it leaves behind a lot of salt. So to improve or leach those salts, you need to improve the permeability of the soil. To do that, you have to have better aggregation. So there are three ultimate soil particles: clay, silt, and sand, based on the size. And they need to come together, make some stable aggregate so that doesn't slake away when the rain falls or when you irrigate. So wet stability of these aggregates is very important. So calcium ion in the gypsum is the promoter of flocculation. So the idea of using gypsum by farmers as well as by researchers like me is to promote that flocculation, have stable aggregation, and create porosity. But that's very expensive. A ton of gypsum can cost close to $30 at the farm gate. Yes.
I'm thinking infiltration.
No, flocculation of the three ultimate particles to make stable aggregates that will create pore space, and that will enhance percolation. So, so basically to improve leaching by gypsum and sulfur burner. See, the issue is the expense of gypsum. A farmer he probably, depending upon sodicity, how much sodium is there in the root zone, he will have to apply 10 tons of gypsum at 10 tons per acre. And mind you, each farmer has hundreds of acres of pecans or cottons or thousands of acres. And if you have to apply 4 to 10 tons, it's going to be very expensive. So if you import gypsum, let's say from Del City or some other place where they mine gypsum, it's going to be like $30, $40 per ton. I don't know the current price. That used to be the price a few years back. Instead, we have a lot of calcium carbonate in our soil. See, our soils are developed from limestone. There is a lot of calcium carbonate in the regolith or in the root zone. The farmers have tried using sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid is a spent, industrial waste product that they can buy cheaply from industrial, suppliers, and they used to dump it in the irrigation channel and gets, mixed with irrigation water. The acidified water would basically it's dilute sulfuric acid, mixes with calcium carbonate. What do you get? It's a hydrated gypsum, CaSO4 2H2O. So that would work if safety precautions are carried out, in a proper way. But when do we irrigate? In July, August, it's super hot. And if you employ some unskilled labor in the farm, they may not wear the safety gear. And the biggest issue is when you transfer acid from a truck into the farm pond or the container. So it can rupture, it can spray acids, it's 92% sulfuric acid. So it can turn man into lobster. Just there have been many, there have been many law cases against the farmers. So they are very scared to use sulfuric acid to make gypsum in situ. Instead, there is a new technology called sulfur burner. So that will make very dilute sulfurous acid. Then it becomes sulfuric acid in the irrigation ditch. And that can react with calcium carbonate in our soils to make gypsum. So that will promote better leaching. So that's just one aspect of my research. But if you have time, we can explain other aspects.
If you guys, Thank you so much. If you guys are interested in more, maybe reach out to him. Do we have any questions from the audience? Oh, it doesn't? Oh, oh, okay. Oh, okay, okay. Okay. Oh, if anybody has a question, we can ask it now. If not, oh, sure. Oh, oh, okay.
How about try now, guys? See if it's enabled. Somebody send a message through the chat. Somebody put, please send questions through here. Good? 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 We got an A. Okay. There we go. It should be good.
Um, oh, if anybody wants to ask one through the microphone. Sorry.
All right. Thank you so much for the panelists. I really appreciate you giving us your thoughts and expertise on this. I just had a quick question because I know for desalinization, when you use kind of instrumentation, it is generally very energy intensive and it becomes very costly. So my question is there any biological desalinization methods that are currently being used in El Paso, such as how certain microorganisms like microalgae can sequester some of the salts, or just kind of if we've incorporated that, or that's still kind of like a project that um, is currently moving to maybe be experimented with?
Just starting. Back. We're just starting the project. Like I mentioned, there was a couple of things that the city of Socorro wanted us to do. The other thing is that we are right behind the Socorro mission. So we have to go where the pond is going to go. That has to be looked at to make sure that there's no artifacts from, has to do with history of Socorro. So those two things put a hold on it, and but we've gotten permission to do both, so we can get started.
Okay. Oh, all right.
I think I asked this question last year. With over 70% of our water going to agriculture, a lot of that agriculture is exported, right? So we live in a desert and we're exporting water. It kind of looks like Marty might have the key to the future here. What's the potential of growing more crops here that are consumed here to kind of close the loop of consumption from export to local consumption?
The other thing that is happening, forget about it. The other thing that's happening is that's why we're getting so much sand, because a lot of the farmland is just dirt right now. Either it's sold off or it's empty. So that's another advantage of growing crops, being able to sell them to the community. I think we've been very successful in both areas right now. We have people that come from all over the El Paso to buy our produce. Uh, you know how cold it was on Saturday? I thought no one's going to come. We were slammed because people know us. They know what we produce. We're open all year round, 3 days, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So a lot of that has to do with the ability to do.
If I may add in. You know, one of the issues is profitability. You know, nobody grows crop for saving water or salinity or what. They do it for living. So they need to live on the income they're getting from the farm. So the reason why they grow pecan is it's remunerative crop. So a lot of it is sold outside El Paso, but it also generates a lot of income for the farmer. And we can't dictate what crops they can grow, but we can actually let them know what kind of income they can have from alternative crops. See, what she is doing is really commendable. You know, there is a lot of vegetables being grown, but if it needs to be sold quickly, there should be enough critical mass. People should go and buy, and there should be a local market. If not, then you can go for something non-perishable, such as quinoa, right? Quinoa is something that's like my favorite because it has high protein content. It's not perishable. It fetches good farm price. Say if you go to Walmart or Whole Foods, you can pay like $5 per pound, but at farm gate you can get $2. And through my research, and the good thing with quinoa is it can tolerate very high salinity levels, like almost 3 times that of what we are getting in groundwater or half of seawater. So this has a potential to replace pecan. On an average, in pecan crop, you can get 3,000 pounds per acre, and you get $57, $50 per pound. So 4,500 is the gross revenue. But if you grow quinoa, you get comparable kind of revenue. So you get like a ton of quinoa, and it can give you like $2. A ton is 2,000 pounds. $2 per pound is $4,000. It can easily compete and maybe replace very high water intensive crops such as pecans. And it's a perennial crop, and it takes 8 9 years to get the first production. And you cannot just stop irrigating during sorry.
Sorry, it's just
You
we have other
drop and
questions.
kill it, so you have to pump groundwater or something. It's
Thank you so much, Dr. G. He's very passionate. um, we do have other questions to get through, so I'm going to read off of these in terms of which I feel are relevant to the conversation. So this one is asking, isn't it counterintuitive to desalinate water if we just inject brine back into the ground? I think maybe Mr. Reinhardt could answer.
Yeah, so the desalination process that we have at our K. Bailey Hutchison desalination plant is that we have 18 million gallons a day. This is at full capacity. That's brackish groundwater, about 4,000 parts per million. Ocean water is 33,000. So we're desalting something that you could taste, but it's not as salty as ocean water. And in doing so, you create a concentrate. Concentrate is a concentration of the salts that we're getting rid of in the water. And what we do for managing this concentrate is we use deep well injection. We have found a very strategic reservoir that is geologically suitable for injecting concentrate. It's been fully vetted and approved by the federal government and the state government. And so we're injecting concentrate that's around 15 to 20,000 TDS into the earth. It's about 22 miles away from the desalination plant. It's right near the McGregor Range Camp, and we've found that it's very effective. In fact, our desalination plant could not be as large as it is if we didn't have deep well injection that works for us. And I might add that our injection, when I say injection, everybody gets kind of nervous about fracking and seismic activity. Our injection conditions are under vacuum conditions, which means that we do not have any motorized or mechanized injection, pumping, or shoving water into a formation. We literally open the valve at the tank, the water flows down under no pressure building conditions. So we're not inducing any seismicity. And, for 17 years, it's been a very effective means of managing our concentrate.
Thank you. And we have another question here that says, do pesticides affect Miss Loya's soil? I think she has a good answer.
So now that we've transitioned to produce, we use no pesticides. We're not organically certified, but we use no pesticides. So the only thing you'll taste if you get something from the ground is dirt, because we can't wash the dirt off. We don't wash anything off really till we harvest, and then we get it ready for the consumer. So no pesticides.
Thank you, Miss Loya. And then we have more questions here. Let's see. These are more questions for Miss Loya, I think you might have already answered. Miss Loya, why did you switch from cotton to vegetables?
Dad was the, sorry. My dad was a cotton farmer. So farming got really bad in the 1970s. So both parents had to go get a GED so they could get a job to support the rest of us. And at that point, my dad was retired and he got back into it a little bit, but not with cotton. He got into it with alfalfa, and then he would grow watermelons and chili. So that was like the main crops. And he was just doing it now to have something to do when he retired. Um, Us, when we took over the farm, we didn't feel that we had the resources to grow cotton because you need machinery, you need labor, you need a lot of things to grow cotton. So we just decided we're going to change it. And so in 2019, we planted seeds in the ground for some vegetables on one side of the 6 acres, because it's 6 acres, and nothing happened. They weren't growing at all. So then we had the soil tested, and that's where we saw that it needed work. We started on the other side, and that one started doing better, started growing things, and we started going. We started planting a lot of seeds. We got 2 greenhouses right now that are full with our vegetables right now because they do well in the winter. And then we have another greenhouse where we're just going to plant flowers because all our flowers are edible. Chefs come out and buy them to garnish their food. We make teas out of them now. We have a girl that can make teas really well, and we sell the teas in bodega, and we also sell the tea in the coffee shop. So we kind of do circles on different things.
There's a question on here that says, how does batch RO save energy? Oh, I think I might have answered that. Well, oh. What is reverse osmosis? So reverse osmosis is what we use to desalinate our water. So if you all know what osmosis is, it's whenever water moves from a state of low concentration to high concentration, so that we can so that both areas can reach equilibrium, and that occurs naturally in nature. But reverse osmosis, we apply pressure against a membrane, and this does the opposite of osmosis. So one of the areas gets more concentrated and the other one is purified. And it's a similar concept to why plants have a hard time pulling up water from the soil, because if the soil is very salty, then the direction that the water will move will be towards the soil to reach equilibrium. So the plants can't get the water that they need to grow. Let's see, I can't move this to explain the mechanism behind it because I don't really want to close the chat. But can we show the previous slide? It's not working. Oh, this slide. Oh. Oh, here we go. So I'm gonna close this for a second. So like I said, reverse osmosis works by applying pressure against a membrane. And the saltier that the water is, the more pressure that is required for separation. And in continuous reverse osmosis, it operates at a continuous high pressure to overcome the osmotic pressure curve right here shown in red. Well, to explain what the osmotic pressure curve is, as water is being filtered out, the remaining water gets more salty, so it requires more pressure for separation. And that's what continuous RO does. It operates at a continuous high pressure to overcome the highest pressure in the osmotic pressure curve. But the technology that they're testing on Miss Loya's farm, batch reverse osmosis, it operates in batches, and it saves energy because it follows the osmotic pressure curve more closely. So this bladder that's in the module, they increase the pressure in the module to separate it. And then here in pink, you can see the savings from operating at a continuous high pressure versus operating close to the osmotic pressure curve. And also what's really cool about this technology is that little salt crystals form on the membrane, and this requires more pressure from the system to filter out water. And this is an issue in reverse osmosis, but whenever the cycles, every time this system depressurizes, then it allows forward osmosis to occur, and that dislodges any of the scalants formed on the membranes. And so it increases the life of the membranes, and it also saves energy. So it's a really cool design. And they don't know exactly how much energy it saves yet. That's what the pilot test is for. But this picture is from their plant at the More Water, Less Concentrate challenge in Yuma, Arizona, and they did really well. They received a lot of funding for that competition. So let's see if we have other questions. Oh, let's see. It says, can we use AI to water the crops at just the right amount depending on how dry the ground is?
That's an interesting question. Allison was one of our interns last summer, and the project basically has been in the works for 2 years now. And what we're doing is using AI on the software side, but drones on the hardware side, the equipment. And the drones will do a comparison of what a tomato should look like. And if it doesn't look like that, it'll send out an alert saying it either needs water or there's something wrong with it, needs something. It'll tell us. So we're already working on it. It's going to take us some time to get there, but with interns like Allison, help out.
We're actually just about out of time now. Thank you all for participating. You guys had some really great questions. Let's see. I wanted to make some closing comments before we go. First of all, thank you so much for the panelists being here, taking their times out of the busy schedule. Yes. Yes, we really appreciate it. And thank you to the World Water Week organization and Dr. Meyer for helping me put this presentation together. We can clap for them too. And I hope that this discussion gave you guys something to think about when it comes to water use in our region. Water is a resource that we all share, not just with each other, but with future generations. And there's so much potential for improvement in water management strategies and sustainable practices. And as temperatures continue to rise, the way we use our water can either mitigate or exacerbate drought. So I'm really excited to see what comes from the current research, like what Dr. G is working on, and Ms. Loya and Mr. Raynar. And I have really high hopes for our generation's ability to collaborate and come up with solutions posed by our changing climate. So thank you very much for being here. Make sure also to check out our other World Water Week events going on. They'll be happening all week. And again, if you're here for extra credit, please sign or scan the QR code. Oh, I can't get this. And, huh? Oh, I think that'll show, but oops. But yes, again, thank you all so much for participating.